You have sidetracked DHS staff who are investigating drug dealers, terrorists, human traffickers, and rather than photo ops, we need more of your focus on providing basic diligence, because your crackdown has roped in American citizens and people who are here legally with no criminal record. Now, I'm not going to ask you whether that was right or wrong. I know it's wrong. The world knows it's wrong. And I think the first thing the history is going to say about your leadership is that you were responsible for many of these travesties. So I'm deeply concerned. You've deported a 4-year-old U.S. citizen with cancer. You've disappeared people to a notorious prison in El Salvador. And you have spent $100 million in taxpayer dollars to air TV ads thanking President Trump. We need to have answers, we need to have accountability, and we need to make sure you're not overspending money that you were not allocated.
Well, thank you for that question. I will be very
really
clear
a
in the
question, it's a
fact.
statement.
Do you want me to respond?
Well, you can.
Well, I've worked many jobs in my life, but I also have been a CEO. I've run
I'm not
businesses. I've been a
questioning your
governor.
credentials. I'm
and it
questioning
is
your spending.
Oh, my Constitution. Did y'all feel that? Because what we just watched wasn't a Senate hearing, it was a full-blown gaslight gala hosted by Madam Secretary herself. Welcome back to Magadotes, the show where patriotism still means telling the truth, not rehearsing talking points in front of a mirror while democracy quietly sobs in the corner. Now let's just start with the basics. Deporting a 4-year-old American kid with cancer? Spending $100 million in taxpayer dollars to air "Thank You, Mr. Trump" commercials? That's not policy, that's propaganda with a federal budget. And I love how she said they're enforcing the law. Yeah, sure. And I'm enforcing my bedtime when I fall asleep mid-tax return. Come on. This isn't about law and order, it's about power and optics. Because when a government starts confusing cruelty for courage, something's broken. And it's not the border. But don't worry, we're not done, because behind that calm tone and CEO experience resume is a system freezing billions in relief, gutting FEMA before hurricane season, and calling it reevaluation. You can't spell reevaluation without evasion. So stay with me, Patriots. Grab your coffee, hit that like button, and let's break this down together, because if this hearing proved anything, it's that you can't run a country like a corporation when the customers are the citizens.
Secretary Noem, under your leadership, we have seen you ignore our appropriation laws, our Constitution, common sense, and even basic humanity. And like a lot of Americans, I really have been horrified by the lawlessness and incompetence and cruelty that we have all witnessed. And for all the talk about going after criminals, you have sidetracked DHS staff who are investigating drug dealers, terrorists, human traffickers. And rather than photo ops, we need more of your focus on providing basic diligence, because your crackdown has roped in American citizens and people who are here legally with no criminal record. Now, I'm not going to ask you whether that was right or wrong. I know it's wrong. The world knows it's wrong. And I think the first thing the history is going to say about your leadership is that you were responsible for many of these travesties. So I'm deeply concerned. You've deported a 4-year-old U.S. citizen with cancer. You've disappeared people to a notorious prison in El Salvador. And you have spent $100 million in taxpayer dollars to air TV ads thanking President Trump. That is really reckless. It's unacceptable, and in my opinion, can't continue. The American people are paying for this with our taxpayer dollars and with their most basic rights. Now, in the last 3 months, you have frozen or canceled over $100 billion in funding that was approved by Congress, bipartisan. We are talking about everything from disaster relief to grants that keep people safe. But when my staff has requested information on the status of this unacceptable holdup, the department failed to provide any acceptable justification. This illegal freeze, and it is illegal, is taking a real toll on communities who are waiting on the investments that Congress has delivered. So will you commit to immediately unpausing these funds?
Well, Senator, thank you for covering a lot of topics there. Let me touch on a few of those right away.
Well,
what the
if
Trump
you could
administration
answer,
is doing
I know
is
you've
enforcing the law for the first time. Under the Biden administration,
I'm asking you about the funds
illegal
that are
aliens were prioritized over American citizens. Now the scales of justice have been leveled, and
Madam
no one
Chair,
is
I'm gonna
treated
reclaim
better
my
than
time
anyone
because
else.
I asked you a
Citizens
specific
are
question.
treated the same,
Madam
and these
Secretary,
illegal
I know
aliens
your
and criminals
answer.
are
I
being
heard it
deported.
previously. I'm asking you a
The
specific
grants that you
question.
are referencing,
Correct.
the grants that you are referencing have been paused and reevaluated to make sure that they are truly being spent in the way to which they were appropriated.
Well, these were-
Many of these grants were being diverted
Madam
into things they
Secretary,
were never intended
these
to.
funds were passed on a bipartisan basis by members
Absolutely,
in
and
this
the Biden
Congress.
administration perverted them in how they used them, diverted them to facilitate illegal immigration, to house people in places like the Roosevelt Hotel, who held illegal
Okay,
criminals
we're
that took the
talking,
life
Madam
of
Chair,
Laken
about
Riley.
$100
I think all of us
billion.
have
It is
recognized that
not credible
the
to
victims
me that
here are
all
the
the
people who have
recipients of
died and
that-
lost their children
Madam
because of this
Secretary,
situation.
it is not credible, Madam Chair. It is not credible that $100 billion is used to break the law. That just cannot be true. And let me change this a little bit. On the other hand, I am very concerned that DHS is now dramatically overspending funding that Congress has not provided. If you were a CEO doing that, I don't think you'd be in your job long. We need accountability and we need answers. And that includes informative responses to oversight questions sent to the department over the last 3 months. I am ranking member on this committee. I have worked with every member of this committee. We take our responsibility serious to fund your department and others. We need to have answers, we need to have accountability, and we need to make sure you're not overspending money that you were not allocated.
Well, thank you for that question. I will be very
not really a
clear in the
question, it's a
fact.
statement.
Do you want me to respond?
Well, you can.
Well, I've worked many jobs in my life, but I also have been a CEO. I've run
I'm not
businesses. I've been a
questioning your
governor.
credentials. I'm
and it is
questioning your spending.
We are prioritizing where our security needs are in this country, and we are hoping that this body will agree that reconciliation is necessary to address the things that have been neglected in this country for too long, that we have the technology upgrades, the manpower upgrades that are necessary. So the $170 billion request for the Department of Homeland Security
Madam
is
Chair,
incredibly
my time is
important
running
to make
out,
sure we
and
have
I
the
do have a
tools that
couple
we
of
need.
additional questions. The fact is that you've not been given this funding. Saying that it's going to come in reconciliation that has not passed is not an acceptable answer. I did want to ask about FEMA and disaster relief. This is really important. A lot of disaster relief has been politicized. You've endorsed eliminating FEMA outright. We have seen an upheaval at FEMA that is going to put lives in jeopardy. 1 in 5 FEMA employees have been pushed out, taking this administration's so-called buyout offer. We are losing indispensable staff just weeks away from fire and hurricane season, and over $100 billion in disaster relief and FEMA grants are still being held up. DHS is making it a lot harder to qualify for relief, something people in my home state of Washington are experiencing firsthand. Multiple requests from governors have been rejected in recent weeks, including a request from our state. And we haven't been given any response about this, and I'm watching this and I'm thinking, has President Trump directed you to prioritize funding for Republican states?
Absolutely not.
Have you directed your staff to prioritize funding to Republican-led states over Democratic
Absolutely
states?
not.
Have
There
your
is,
staff
under this administration, there will not be any politicization of support, relief, FEMA assistance, or grants given based on politics.
Well,
Every single person
there
will be
is a
treated the same.
clear
It will be very
trend,
different than the Biden
Madam
administration.
Secretary, there's a clear trend of Republican-led states getting very fast responses and funding. Democrat-led states are being forced to wait. We have never treated FEMA as a partisan issue in this country.
So let me get this straight. The Department of Homeland Security has paused over $100 billion in relief, deported a sick 4-year-old American, and somehow we're supposed to believe that's law and order. I keep hearing this new Republican phrase, we're just enforcing the law. But apparently the law now includes freezing disaster aid and thanking the president with taxpayer-funded commercials. If irony had frequent flyer miles, it'd be circling the Capitol right now. Here's the part that gets me. The secretary talks about reevaluating grants to make sure they're spent appropriately. Oh, honey, you don't get to break the system and then act like you're auditing it. That's like burning down the library and calling yourself a literacy advocate. And the FEMA mess? That's not efficiency reform. That's what happens when you treat government like a business merger instead of a lifeline. You don't downsize first responders weeks before hurricane season unless you've replaced compassion with a calculator. What we're really seeing here is the same old playbook. Punish the vulnerable, reward the loyal, and wrap it all in a flag so it looks patriotic. Because when billion-dollar freezes hit Democratic-led states harder than Republican ones, but we're told everyone's treated the same, that's not equality. That's selective governance with a PR budget. And can we talk about this CEO mindset she keeps bragging about? Running a country isn't like running a company. In business, if you cut costs and people suffer, it's called strategy. In government, it's called dereliction of duty. What's really going on here is a moral crisis disguised as a budget crisis. We're watching public service replaced with self-service, and the bill is landing squarely on the American people. This isn't leadership, it's laundering cruelty through bureaucracy. Deporting a child doesn't make you strong. Defunding disaster relief doesn't make you efficient. Silencing oversight doesn't make you smart. It makes you scared of accountability. But here's the thing, the American people see it. Every hearing, every frozen dollar, every family left stranded by reevaluation. And when the noise dies down, what's left is a country quietly asking, who's all this toughness really for? So yeah, Madam Secretary might say she's enforcing the law, but the rest of us know justice without humanity isn't law at all. So if you believe empathy is still American, hit that subscribe button, share this video, and stay loud because history's watching how we treat people when no one's clapping. And around here, we clap for accountability.